please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Lockdown and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So I want to talk about some teams on the playoff bubble here who have really been struggling recently. And it's interesting because this is the time of year as we head towards the playoffs that you would expect these teams who are on the playoff line, on the playoff bubble, to be playing their best hockey. I mean, they have to be desperate. They have to be trying to get every single point that they can get to make sure that they either stay in a playoff spot or pull into a playoff spot and end up making the postseason this year. These teams should be playing their absolute best hockey of the season right now. Instead, a lot of them, a very high number of them, are not playing well at all right now and have been really struggling recently and either playing right around 500 or even worse than 500 hockey at the most important time of the year, which really doesn't make much sense when you think about it, but goes to show how difficult this league is and how it's not easy to get into the playoffs and it's not easy to win on a nightly basis. But these are playoff bubble teams that are really struggling here recently at a time of year where you would not expect them to be struggling, not want them to be struggling, where they should actually be trying to play their best and win as many games as they can to get into a playoff spot. So let's pull up some standings here. Starting in the Eastern Conference, teams, a number of these teams are pretty safe as far as the playoffs go. So I'm not going to talk about them. I want to talk about the teams right on this bubble, right on the playoff bubble, starting with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are in the third spot in the Atlantic and are 3 points to the good over Florida for that third playoff spot in the Atlantic Division. Again, I think only 3 teams from the Atlantic and 5 from the Metro are going to make the postseason this year. So it's really down to between Toronto and Florida for that final Atlantic spot. Now, Toronto is 3 points to the good, but they are just 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. This is a team that should be trying to, now obviously they have some injury issues right now going on, which they have really all season, but this is a team that should be trying to, be playing their best hockey right now. That should be, making sure that they pick up every win that they can get to make sure that they stand clear of Florida and are in a playoff position. And they're just 4-5-1. In their last 10. Now, Florida's not doing much better, all the way down at 76 points, 3 points, obviously, like I said, behind Toronto. Florida's only 4-4-2 in their last 10. So that's what's kind of helped Toronto in the fact that while they're struggling right now, so is their competition. And that's the case for a lot of these teams. A lot of these teams are struggling, but so is their competition, so they're not really losing ground in the standings because everybody's kind of sucking right now. But Toronto, 4-5-1. Florida, 4-4-2. 2 teams that should be playing their best hockey of the year and desperate for points. Both Florida, I guess, at 500. Toronto under 500 in their last 10. Columbus in the top wildcard spot in the East. 81 points. You would think that they'd be trying to lock in a playoff position with the Blue Jackets. 3-4-3 in their last 10 games. Carolina. Now, Carolina's won 2 in a row, which has really put them into this playoff spot. The number 2 wildcard team right now. They were, really struggling before these last 2 games. They're still just 4-4-2 in their last 10 games. The Islanders, who have now fallen out of a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Imagine that a month ago. Imagine a month ago saying that the Islanders were going to fall out of a playoff spot in the East. They are currently the first team out. They are 2-5-3 in their last 10 games. 2 wins in their last 10 games for the New York Islanders at the most important time of the season when they're fighting for a playoff spot. That is unreal. That is unreal. They should be 5-2-3 in their last 10, not 2-5-3. Just brutal for the Islanders here over the last couple weeks. The New York Rangers are actually the bubble team that's playing the best right now. 6-4-0 in their last 10, and even that's not great. That's only 1 game, I guess 2 games over 500. But if you switch one of those wins with a loss, and they're 5-5, they're a 500 team. They're only 1 game better than that, 1 win better than that over their past 10 games, and they're the best performing bubble team in the Eastern Conference right now. Now, they did lose to New Jersey in their last game, which is a real brutal loss for them there. That definitely hurts their playoff chances. They're still 3 points out of a playoff spot here, but they've been playing better than anyone else. I mean, Toronto struggling, Columbus, Carolina, the Islanders, Florida, all struggling right now at crunch time, down the stretch, at the end of the regular season, when they should be playing their absolute best, most desperate hockey of the year. It doesn't make sense to me. It's mind-boggling to see this many teams fighting for playoff spots playing so poorly. Now we move over to the Western Conference, and it's a little bit different out west. There are some teams out west playing well, particularly the Minnesota Wild, who are 7-3-0 in their last 10, and Winnipeg's actually playing pretty well, 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. However, other teams are not playing well. Vancouver right now, second wildcard spot, just 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. Vancouver was a team that a month ago looked firmly in a playoff spot, firmly in playoff position, easily. All they had to do was just ride out the rest of the season and they'd be going to the playoffs. Now all of a sudden, they're only in a playoff spot by the tiebreaker for regulation wins, or actually regulation plus overtime wins, because them and Nashville are virtually tied right now for that last playoff spot. 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. They should be playing their most desperate hockey of the year right now, and they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Nashville, first team out in the Western Conference. 5-4-1 in their last 10. Now they have won 2 in a row. They shut out the Dallas Stars twice over the past few days. Shouldn't say couple, but over the last few days, they've shut out Dallas twice and picked up 2 huge wins there. They're still only at 76 points, and they're still outside of a playoff position right now. 5-4-1 in their last 10, about 500 hockey. They got to be better than that. You have to be playing better than that at crunch time. Arizona, 5-5-0 in their last 10. Exactly a 500 team in their last 10 games. They're currently 2 points out of a playoff spot. It's just mind-boggling to me to see this many teams in both conferences on that playoff line, right on that bubble, when they should be playing their best hockey of the year and trying to pick up every point that they can get, playing very mediocre and in some cases downright bad hockey right now. It's incredible to see. These teams that should be desperate, that should be fighting so hard for every point, that should be, winning huge games and pulling into playoff spots, ending up with records like Vancouver 3-6-1, Arizona 5-5-0, Nashville 5-4-1. The Islanders 2-5-3 in their last 10. Florida 4-4-2. Carolina 4-4-2. Columbus 3-4-3. Toronto 4-5-1. These teams, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, the good news for them is that they're all struggling. So everybody, it's not just them. Their competition is struggling as well, but it's incredible to see that. I thought that these teams would be playing, their best hockey of the year right now, and that they'd have their best 10-game stretches of the year right now. And they're just not doing it. They're not coming up big in crunch time. They're not coming up big down the stretch. And they're all still just a plethora of mediocrity at the playoff bubbles right now. And it'll be interesting to see who gets in and who doesn't, because none of them are really playing well. With the exception of Minnesota and Winnipeg out west, who are bubble teams that are playing pretty well here recently, the rest of them all mediocre or worse here in the month of March and over their past 10 games or so. It's been really, really wild to watch. But we'll see what happens the rest of the way. I just thought it was really interesting to see this many bubble teams struggling right now when they're fighting for their playoff lives, but they still can't find ways to win games. It's almost like none of them deserve to make the playoffs. Like, some of them are going to get in, some of them are going to get left out, but do any of them actually deserve to get in? I mean, we'll see down the stretch if any of these teams can go on a good little run here in the last 10 to 12 games or so. And maybe, if in their last 10 games they end up going 7-3, that will be enough to get into a playoff spot, because that some of these other teams are going to go 4-6 or even 3-7, and they're going to end up on the outside looking in. So, It's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be fun to watch here the rest of the way. We'll see what happens, but you would think that these teams would be playing their absolute hearts out in their absolute best hockey that they can right now, and that just doesn't seem to be the case as so many of them are struggling. But with that, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to my Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys soon.